Hello all my beautiful sisters from those other misters, welcome back to my channel. It is time to update my project palettes series. So this is basically a series where I use whatever eyeshadows I want, and each month I come back and I talk to you guys about what I thought of them. These are not new palettes. Maybe sometimes there's a new palette in here, but for the most part it is just my collection of eyeshadow palettes that has built up over the years, and I am trying to get some use out of them. I only really dug into 4 palettes. I think I will start with this guy because I think this has been in some previous months. This is from Viseart. It is the Petit Pro in Soleil. So it's a little 8-pan palette. Packs a punch, such a tiny little thing. Like, I go on and on and on about how I love their Petite range, and it's because there's just so much in such a small little palette, and that's kind of how I like it, as opposed to, you know, full-size eyeshadow. Well, I mean, these are her small ones from Natasha Denona. Actually, do I have any, like, really proper full-size eyeshadows? Are these ones from Colourpop? I don't think they technically are. Maybe, no, even these ones are, I mean, these ones are probably standard for a square pan. Anyway, I like the little palettes, small pans. That's my jam. So I've been playing with this a little bit recently because, well, my hair mostly. I'm really embracing the summery, bright, vibrant hair, and these colors work very well with my hair. The one that I'm actually wearing today is the Femme Rosa, but we'll get to that. So while I've been using this little palette, I have seen its flaws, and there are a few. First of all, there's 3 mattes. You've got one that is like my skin color, which is fine, great, but also kind of useless, to be honest. I feel like this is really only a shade for setting my eye base. It can be used to blend out some of the other mattes, like if you use the yellow or the purple in your crease and you want to sort of help soften the edges. I feel like it makes it look a bit lackluster and muddy. So I prefer to just spend the time blending. So I actually think this color is useless. I feel like it should have just been a matte orange, to be honest, or a matte red maybe. The yellow is really nice. I like the yellow. The purple is pants. It just doesn't it doesn't blend well at all, and it stains. So I don't actually think it's a very good formula. The color is really beautiful though, and it works perfectly with the rest of the palette. When it comes to the shimmers, I really like them, but I also feel like, look, lately I've been really loving Sparkle and Multichrome. I do like these sort of shimmery metallic shades, but I feel like they just don't pack as much punch as I want them to. This sort of fuchsia shade here kind of borders on like fluorescent, and there's also, it's got like a ever so slight sort of lavendery blue reflect, which is really pretty. But I mean, the rest are, you know, a bit sad. I feel like they look better finger swatched than they do when they're just applied to the eye. I'm gonna, oh look, I'm gonna get them all swatched. There we go. The purple, or the like fuchsia sort of shade, that is probably the prettiest in the palette if you ask me, whereas the others are just, I feel like they're quite generic. So you can probably guess that I'm not swooning over the formula of this palette, but what really does hit the mark for me is the color story, except for this guy. I don't feel like it adds anything to the palette, and I also think for some people it will detract from the palette, so that's a shame. Maybe I could take one of my ones from the Spritz palette and put it in here, maybe an orange shade or something. You know what, let's do it. Oh, I failed to remember that there's not actually any fucking orange in this palette. Whoopsie daisy. And there we go. Gorgeous. I think that would work a lot better. Red and purple goes beautifully together. Red and yellow also works. That's how I will use that palette from now on. And this guy can go in here, and all of a sudden this palette looks really, really like the more I look at this palette, the more I'm just like, God, that is so sad. There needed to be more colors in there, but that's fine. It's funny, you know, I look at these two palettes and I love them, but over the years of my preferences changing and using these a lot more, I look at them with different eyes. Like it's just, I don't know, it's interesting. Let's move on to this. This is a Soul Blooming palette from Nabla. I pulled this one out because I can't remember if I hadn't used it at all or I hadn't used it much, and I wanted to get a vibe for it. I really didn't use it all that often. I basically did two things with it. I did really boring neutral looks, which is kind of just my preference these days, for like simplicity of applying and getting a pretty looking eye done quickly, and also just because like this hair is intense, so wearing really, really brightly colored eyeshadow along with this hair can be a lot, especially if I also then want to wear something bright and colorful or a little bit statement-ish. So, you know, I'm kind of just gravitating more towards these sort of neutral shades, but I also wanted to play around with these shades here because they kind of go like, they're sort of in the middle of where blue and purple meets, blurple basically. So Flowery is kind of like a, it's almost like a periwinkle. Anemone, I didn't even use it. It kind of, let's swatch it. Let's have a look. No, see, it looks almost like denim, blue denim-ish now. No, see, there's like, I can see purple hints in there. There's like a, I don't know, like a sheen of purple. You might be able to like spot it around the edges. Flower, I did use Flower. That I used that in my video before this, where I was talking about my advent calendar sampled out project, and I didn't really like the way it applied, to be honest, and it wasn't super special. And then this shade is Garden Gate, which is, it's a bit of a like duochrome shade, sort of purple to lavendery bluish. I would say it's a little bit generic, but super, super pretty. So I think when I look at this palette, like what I'm seeing is two shades that I just probably won't reach for. The rest I would reach for. I did really like the matte, like neutral shades. They were really pretty. I also did like Bolero. That was really nice, and I think it complements these sort of brown tones really nicely. And Honey Drip, which was, I mean, look, I feel like anyone with a large collection does have a shade like this, but it's sort of that like translucent gold with a like ever so slight like yellowy honey-ish. Honey Drip, I mean, that's, you know, it's probably why they named it that. But I do think that is sort of, it's a really pretty shade. I think getting that effect on the eyelid is very difficult though, especially on a small eyelid. I just think it needs to be sort of buffed into the skin. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Even when it's applied with a brush and it looks a bit heavier, it still looks quite pretty. No, it doesn't come off on camera in the way that I'm trying to explain how it looks on the eyelid. The lights in the camera diffuse it too much. There's still quite a few pans in this palette that I just haven't dipped into, so I think I might keep it in like my everyday makeup drawer and continue to play with that one. Next palette that I have is the Femme Rosa palette from Colourpop. So this is old as the hills, but I still kind of love it. The mattes are my favorite part of this palette. They are just so beautiful and they work really well together. And I think, I mean, look, I'm biased because purple and red is kind of my jam, but this little color combo is very complementary, both towards themselves and my coloring. Another shade that I really love in this palette is this one here, and it is kind of like a, I don't know, it's duochromy, but it's sort of like pink to bronze, and I just think it's really pretty. When that shade is put around these shades, I do feel that it all starts to look very samey. You don't get a whole lot of like color definition, but that's fine. Like, that doesn't really bother me. I do think the other shades in the palette are very pretty, but I think we do have a tiny bit of sort of redundancy with these two shades here, which look extremely similar. You've just got one that's a little bit deeper and a little bit redder, more red than the other. You've got a whole bunch of, like, you know, very light shades, which are really good for highlighting on like the inner corner or making the eyelid pop. But again, it's sort of, you know, it's all within the same color family. Usually if a palette this big is creating the same look over and over and over, no matter what shades you use, I do tend to be like, well, what the fuck is the point? But in this case, I'm biased because I really love this color story. So, you know, it is what it is. We like what we like, essentially. And the last palette is the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. I think I'll get these swatches off first. When I purchased this palette, I was not expecting it to have so much pigmentation and be so sort of in-your-face nude. And to be fair, it's probably the only in-your-face nude palette or bronze palette, whatever, that I've ever come across. It is unapologetically bold, and initially I was a bit sort of taken back by that, and I actually found it quite difficult to wear. I always considered this almost like a nightclub nude palette. Like, if you want to go to a nightclub where people aren't going to have a lot of light to see your makeup, but you still want them to notice, wear this palette. So it didn't get a lot of love from me, but I have been wearing it a little bit recently, and I feel like, I think what's changed is probably my hair, and my hair can really detract from anything that is trying to make a bold statement on my face. So this actually looks quite nice, and just pretty on my face with hair like this, which I love, because what this palette does really well, it's like textures when it comes to like the metallic and shimmery shades. So that one there is sort of a bronze to pink duochrome. We have a metallic coppery shade, or metallic gold, metallic copper. This one is sort of like a brick red with sort of, it's like a micro gold micro glitter in it. I don't feel like you really see that gold micro glitter though in person. It kind of gets lost. It's probably in there just for like depth of color or something, but I think the only way you would actually see it is if you were trying to photograph it with like a macro lens, and I'm not doing that, so you know, it's lost on me. But yeah, I do think this palette is, it's nice. It's really nice. And I think when I purchased it, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be, which is fine. It can be really difficult to determine if a makeup product is right for you just based on, you know, pictures and stuff like that, or even, you know, swatching it in a store. It's not until you really put it on your face that you start to work out how the product works with you. There was a long time for where this just wasn't getting used, but now I feel like I appreciate it a lot more, and I think it has more of a place in like my regular routine than it did when I originally purchased it, thanks to Madeline and this insane vibrant hair. Okay guys, so that's it for my project palettes update. Let me know what palettes or eyeshadows you've been using recently. Maybe it's your Christmas stash that has been keeping you busy through January. Let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.